Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Detailed. I am your host, Vinay, with my co host, Raj. Raj, we finally got a couple of days in between the win against the Warriors, the series clincher against the Warriors. We had Mother's Day weekend, and the last time we talked, you said you wanted to have a stress free weekend if the Lakers took care of
Mm.
business in game six, and that's what they did. How was your weekend after that win?
Oh man, it was great. Got to enjoy Mother's Day, take my mom out to dinner, and yeah, a relaxing day. Other than the Celtics beating the doors off of the Sixers,
Yeah.
it was a pretty enjoyable weekend. Got a few days, to relax and decompress. Took the weekend to kind of enjoy that and just bask in the glow of being in the conference finals. But yeah, I'm good, man. I'm excited. It's grateful to be in this position where we still have basketball that matters to us personally. I think it's a beautiful thing and a blessing to be a part of this. But how'd your weekend go, man?
Yeah, man, my weekend was good. We got the win on Friday, and then Saturday took the kids to the beach, and that was nice because the weather finally was nice enough to take them there. And
Mm.
then I was exhausted after that, so I really needed the time off just to decompress my brain. So that was nice, and now we're back at it here again on Monday night. But as always, we want to thank the folks that are jumping into the space or joining us on the live stream. If you'd like to share a comment, you can always do that by messaging in the YouTube chat, or you can just message to the space directly, and we'll definitely read questions and comments and stuff that come through related to our topic of today, which is going to be the series preview. But as always, we appreciate the folks that support. So whether it's a like or a retweet or a share or whatever it
Hmm.
is you guys end up doing to support Lakers Detailed or me and Raj just individually. Or as a collective, whatever. We always appreciate it. So we hope everybody had a wonderful weekend too as well. But before we get into the series preview, we should pay our respects to the team that we beat. And by pay our respects, I don't actually mean pay our respects, just actually gloat a little bit about our win because, I thought that, a lot of people didn't pick the Lakers to win this series at all against the Warriors. And a lot of people, said it was either, the Warriors' experience or the Lakers not having enough outside of LeBron and AD, or just the spectacularness of Steph Curry. Like a lot of people didn't pick the Lakers to do it, and you and I both picked the Lakers to win. We both expected it to be a long series, and the Lakers took care of it in six, and they did it in pretty fantastic fashion. That game six was not close, like at all. Like even granted with the Warriors, a 15-point lead can be erased in like 2 minutes, but that it felt like the Lakers were locked in defensively because they were forcing tons of bad misses for them. What was your feeling as you were watching that game?
Yeah, I mean, I was nervous as I think most people were. I was a little bit. It was pretty tense. You going through a game six could be kind of up in the air. The Warriors blowing us out in game five. But I love the energy to start. I thought we came out great, went up like 27-10. And then Vinay, we haven't talked since then, but like they came back, right? I think they cut it to like 5 or 6. And then that whole kind of second quarter was back and forth before Austin Reeves, man, just hits a half court heave to like put us back up 11, and it really calmed me down. And I thought, like, we're not losing this game. There's too much momentum going to the half. You could tell. Look at the body language of the Warriors after that possession. You could tell they were like, "Oh crap!" Like we fought back so hard, and like just to go right back down double digits. So it was exciting to kind of put it away. And I see in the chat here, done with the Curry business. That's the way I like to frame it. I'm over the Curry business. I'm familiar with it. Going to war with Steph Curry, like I was a tense, series, and it's been just swept under the rug as like, oh yeah, you're supposed to. It's the Golden State Warriors defending champs. Like that's a big deal to me. I know they have things, they have their own tension in their locker room and stuff that's going on with them, but I thought it was impressive, and I think it was important to kind of mention that. Like it's a real team that Steph Curry just put a 50 bomb in Game 7 the previous series. It's a talented team, man, and Steve Kerr pulled out all the tricks. It's not like he's just like, oh, this doesn't work. Oh well, like they had like three different starting lineups. They changed their game plan a ton of times. They changed their offensive scheme, and for us to come out on top in Game 6, I thought it was super impressive how we put them away.
Yeah, it was the game. I think it was super impressive. Austin showed a lot of poise in that game. Again, he had probably a slightly shaky start. I would say he kind of looked like he was over dribbling a little bit, but he kind of settled down. Again, uh, D'Lo up and down game. You know, you could tell Gary Payton was very like in his jersey. We should give ourselves a pat on the back because you and I both had a discussion after Game 5 and we talked about what's the final thing that we may see from this team when it comes to adjustments. And you and I both sort of debated, and you posed the question, I think, you know, would you play Lonnie? Would you bench Vando? If you bench Vando, who do you go with? And we both had a discussion, and you know, we said, look, he's either going to stick with Vando,
Hmm.
and or he's going to end up playing Dennis because Dennis has been the guy that Ham trusts. And you also mentioned that the numbers look really good with Dennis,
Yeah.
part of that lineup. And I think you were the one that mentioned that Dennis is like the one. Dennis, D'Lo, Austin is like the trio that Ham very clearly seems comfortable with. So while the timeline was guessing, you know, it would be like Lonnie or Rui or suggesting that would be two. Uh, it ended up being Dennis, and they start Dennis. Dennis does a wonderful job defensively, gets a couple buckets, fouls, kind of does what he does. Hilariously gets himself ejected for taunting of all people, taunting Draymond Green, collects two technicals and gets himself removed from the game. But it ends up being not consequential because the Lakers ended up still winning significantly. But that was, you know, so I just want to say we should give ourselves a pat on the back because we were that was a good prediction that came true and it was fairly accurate as to how it ended up working out for us. But this series that's coming up is going to be a little bit different. It's
Yeah.
going to be a series that might actually be a little bit more the opposite of what we saw from the Warriors. With the Warriors, we saw a team that downsized when they went to the bench, and you saw a team that their identity was a little bit more in playing faster. You know, they minimized the amount of non-shooters on the floor. Denver's a very different team. Their roster
Hmm.
is set up very differently. The geometry of how they play basketball is very, and that's the word I like to use because I think that accurately describes the uniqueness of what um, Nikola Jokic is. He changes the geometry of how you play basketball because you don't see the biggest player on your team also basically play point guard for your team, and that's what he presents. It's a very different situation, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how the Lakers deal with it. But they're familiar with them, you know.
Yeah.
They've dealt with it. So, what are your initial thoughts about just this matchup that's coming up? Like, what's the first thing that comes out from the top of your mind that you think the Lakers need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's funny going from Steph to Jokic, right? Like there's no breaks in the Western Conference. There's no relaxing. Like you go straight from one generational offensive player to just one other generational offensive player, and they do it in different ways. But I think that's the biggest thing. Like to me, the series will come down to what you do with Jokic, and obviously you're not going to stop his scoring. But like I think players like him, Steph, Luca, etc., that you put in this tier, like you have to pick a poison, and like that poison can kill you anyway, like whichever one you choose. But yeah, that's like him versus AD obviously is the big thing that's put out. But I think our guards versus their guards getting over on screens and then keeping that pick and roll into a 2-on-2 matchup. But it's gonna be Nuggets are good. They can score. They have a lot of continuity. They have their guys. They're one of the few teams in a league full of teams, Vinay, that don't give a crap about the regular season. They were one that did. They've been the one seed, I believe, since December. I think they kind of sleepwalked at the end there, but they had the one seed locked up by so many games it didn't matter. But I think they just have a bunch of, they have a lineup that's played together a ton with KCP and Aaron Gordon, and they're going to be tough, man. And we're a team I think that's still figuring stuff out. So Darvin Ham pressing buttons while Denver kind of knows they're kind of playing eight guys. If you look at Denver's kind of rotation, they have like eight guys in their rotation, and no real backup center with Aaron Gordon playing that role. So they know who their team is, and we have like 10 guys trying to fit a 8-man rotation, right? So I think that's like it's a really fun kind of contrast there of teams, but. It's exciting. I think the Jokic versus AD definitely pops off, and then LeBron be able to hunt switches and a lot of fun stuff to kind of talk about with this series. But the Jokic part of it, to me, finding the key for him to like not have 38, 14, right? Like that to me, that's where he kills you. If he has like the 14 assists along with him getting 30, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. I've been trying to find the right term to describe what this is, like what the kind of defense you have to play against him. And
Yeah.
I'm still scrambling. Like the only one I've been able to think of is I call it the Trojan defense, and
Hmm.
it's from like that the Trojan horse and how the Greeks used the Trojan horse to get inside the walls of Troy, and they had people hidden inside there. So it's not necessarily that. It's not exactly that. That analogy is not perfect, but the reason why I like the analogy, it's because if you look at it from the perspective of allowing the opposing team to do something that they think they're doing effectively, but really you
Hmm.
have a bigger goal, right? Like you're trying to set a trap. So I've thought about like how we have to defend Jokic, and I think a lot of times when I think about how we should defend Jokic, I do expect us to do a lot of single coverage. I don't expect us to do a lot of doubling, triple teaming, because simply because of the reason you described. Like he's a fantastic passer, and he will do things for the sole purpose of setting up passes for his teammates, whether it's cuts, even if it's not designed. It's the very thing that like LeBron has been applauded for like his entire career. He'll just go and find the smallest guy, go post him up because he knows somebody's going to come and help. And I think the attention to detail for Anthony Davis when it comes to making sure he sticks with Jokic and he doesn't, allow 5-on-4s or 4-on-3s if he misses a layup or whatever. We're fortunate in this situation. Jokic is slower than Anthony Davis, so it's a very rare thing for something like that to happen. Where Anthony Davis isn't the biggest, slowest guy on the floor. Like he's faster than Jokic, so he should be able to get up the floor defensively and offensively. But we have to play like this Trojan style defense, which is just if Jokic is going to score 50, 60 points, Anthony Davis is probably going to get made fun of for it. But
Oof.
if they result in him not getting 14 assists and he's only getting like 5, 6 assists, and that's the difference between us winning a game and losing a game, that might be worth it. I'm not saying that's what they should do or that should be the strategy, but I think that's like something that I remember like Ty Lue did with like Luca. Like Luca would come out
Hmm.
against the Clippers and he'd have like 30 in the first half, and he'd be
Yeah.
completely gassed out by the second half. And granted, he didn't have a Jamal Murray type, but like he'd be completely gassed out in the second half, and the Clippers would just kind of keep chipping away, keep chipping away, keep chipping away. And so I'm curious to see what the Lakers' strategy defensively is going to be, but that matchup is going to be huge for sure.
So let's start here. Would you start with AD on Jokic? I think like the Lakers preferred outcome would be AD on like Aaron Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like to be able to roam similarly to how they put him on GP2, to JaMychal Green, to Xavier Tillman, yada yada. Like in all these games, is that viable in this series? I think like they're gonna try some possessions to have LeBron on Jokic, so LeBron
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be the rotator. I think it's twofold as well. If you have AD on Jokic, then it's the Warriors' dilemma again, right? They bring him up in the Jamal Murray ball screen, and now you have AD out on the perimeter while Jamal Murray and Jokic play 2-on-2, and you can have guys cut off that, and you have Rui or LeBron or Vando as your rim protection there. But like starting this series off, would you start game one AD on Jokic to start and then kind of move back from that, or would you want to put him on Aaron Gordon or someone else?
Yeah, so I would trust AD on Jokic. Like the major concern
Mm,
is when the collisions happen between AD and Jokic, like is AD going to get in foul trouble because of it? And
yeah.
I think he has enough credibility with the refs as well as just defensive technical skill where he'll be okay. And again, like this is another example of like it's not a I don't want to say it's a ref bias, but it is a thing that happens with refs. AD's smaller than Jokic. So typically, when the player that's playing defense is smaller than the guy that's he's playing defense against, they kind of let them get away with a little bit more physicality without calling fouls and whatnot. And that doesn't mean he won't get fouls, but I think like AD is disciplined enough to be able to defend him straight up, and at least
Mm,
to start these games off. Because really, I just don't like the idea like Braun is we've talked about it many times. He's compromised physically. I don't know if he can kind of stand up Jokic. You know what I mean? Like if he can
yeah.
prevent them from getting 2 feet in the paint and whatnot. And I mean honestly, if Jokic again, if Jokic gets turned into a guy who's chucking threes at the perimeter as opposed to like getting closer to the rim, creating shots for his teammates, I'm kind of okay with that because now you're
Yeah.
going against what the identity of your actual offense is, which is this big dude who can score at the rim and pass it anywhere on the floor.
Yeah, it's similar to me how we've defended others. Like you want to keep the Murray Jokic a 2-on-2, right? You want
Mhm.
to keep that like a 2-on-2 action and not involve Michael Porter Jr. getting open or KCP getting free, getting loose for threes. And Aaron Gordon, I think we're going to beg to take shots,
For
even though
sure.
he's shooting a respectable percentage. But if he wants to take jump shots, and albeit, but yeah, I think like they're gonna try to force him, as you said, to be a jump shooter. And Jokic has Vinay, like I don't know, I was watching. He has like the slowest shot fake and drive in the
Yeah.
league, and it just works. Like it's
Yeah.
like the most. It's in slow motion. Like it's the pump fake. It's a 3-step process going to his dribble, and he still like gets by dudes. And I think this is where AD is just being a generational type defender. I think
Yeah.
comes in where he needs to be able to not dissuade the three, but contest it enough, right? You want to give wide open looks to Jokic. I think he's shooting a ridiculous percentage from three as well.
Yeah.
But try to dissuade the easy open three and then also take away the drive. And that's a lot to ask, but he's gonna have a huge ask anyway in this series. But yeah, and then also knowing his IQ, having to pick when to shade more on Jamal Murray, when to take
Yeah.
away the pass back to Jokic, and when to kind of play in that in between game. And that's the series to me. AD's like in between defense, and you talked about it, getting steals, getting deflections, all that stuff to me is huge. And AD's in the center of that. And yeah, you don't want LeBron. I just think like for a few possessions, instead of LeBron chasing around MPJ on screens, like
Yeah.
just being a bruiser inside, and Jokic is gonna hit the little jump hooks over him. I don't mind that. It's still like bully ball to the rim kind of stuff, gets you in foul trouble, gets the defense collapse, and that's where he lives. Is like the skip passes to the corner, the wing hits to MPJ, the Aaron Gordon cuts for dunks. That gets their crowd going in ways that I think like if Jokic is just hitting shot after shot, I think it reduces the momentum that they have.
Yeah, no, I agree. The other thing is also their starting lineup, like the guys that they have, are a little bit more 3 and D oriented guys as opposed to like self creation, like outside of Jamal, like self creation guys. So like Aaron Gordon, not a guy who really creates for himself, like looks to create for himself. He can in
Yeah.
smaller pockets, but it's not like a guy you're just giving him the ball and saying, okay, go get me a bucket. Like that's not usually how they run. They're doing it. Like maybe he gets in the post up if he gets a small guy on him in offensive transition. But for the most part, I highly doubt Aaron Gordon's going to be trying to like post up LeBron or even Vando if that switch happens. Same thing with KCP. KCP, not a guy who's going to break you down like with a live dribble. MPJ is also kind of a guy who prefers to catch and shoot, comes off of screens, does he got that Kevin Durant comp a long time ago, which I think
Hmm.
was almost an insult to Kevin. But like there was a game I think against Phoenix that they lost, game 4, where like they were down like 4 or something like that, and he had like a 3-on-2, and I remember he took like a transition pull up three that got
Oh
blocked
yeah,
from
yeah.
behind by DeAndre Ayton, and I was just like, not that obviously that was a dumb play at the time, but like watching that, I was like, that's what he wants to do. Like he wants to
Hmm.
be a pull-up jump shooter guy that comes off the screen stuff. He's not a guy where you give him the ball and he's trying to break down the guy that's in front of him. So it's like when you think about it that way, like Jamal and Jokic like are kind of the self-creation guys, like that'll
Hmm.
do it on their own. And so when you know that, it reduces like like you look back at the Warrior series, we saw that, right? Draymond, not a self creator. Clay, not a self
Yeah.
creator. GP2, Looney, not self creators. It was really Poole and Curry were the two main guys who can create shots for themselves. And as long as we locked up one of them, which was Jordan Poole, majority of the time, Lakers were fine. So I think if they approach defense, if their scouting reports are real detailed and accurate, they'll be able to play the calculated risk. They'll be able to say, okay, if we don't have to necessarily put a really great defensive player on a guy like KCP or a guy like MPJ
Yeah.
because he's gonna just shoot the ball. He's not really gonna attack the rim. So they got to try and play some of that stuff into their own favor.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the advantage is. I think Reeves can chase around KCP. And to me though, I think the best defense is a good offense. Like
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
keeping them out of transition. Like if you saw, it's obviously painful, but KCP had like 17 points in the first quarter against Phoenix in
Mhm.
game 6. A lot of that was just runouts, like
Yeah,
terrible passes by Katie and Booker, who turn the ball over a ton, and KCP just got run out layups, run out transition. And that's where MPJ comes in, right? His athleticism and his like ability to shoot, that all gets magnified in transition for him. He's already 6'10", 6'10" or 6'11", whatever he is. And he loves to fire from three, and that's where they get loose, and that's what you need to keep out. But this should be like a slow pace, very much LeBron mismatch hunting. We'll see if they single cover AD against Jokic. If that's the case, and get AD some post backers, and just have defensive balance when you're running back, right? And I think that's so important. We've been terrible transition defense through most of the year. I think like this series will really magnify how important that is. But that I think that's the way to stop. You're not going to stop Jokic. Like, he's going to get his 30. Like, that's just like, I don't think you're going to negate his offensive impact. But keeping the assist down and making sure like Jamal Murray also doesn't have 40, right? Like, to me, that's where like you keep him a little bit more in check. And then KCP, Bruce Brown, Christian Braun. Their rotation is really short. Like, that's kind of the extent that they go into their bench. Bruce Brown, Christian Braun, and Aaron Gordon's really there.
Jeff Green off the bench playing center for them. Yeah.
Jeff Green, yeah. I'm not sure how much he played in the Phoenix series. I don't remember. But like, yeah, Jeff Green off the bench, who's I think as old as LeBron, still getting up there, strangely.
Still putting guys in the basket.
In posters, yeah. And so like that's where our advantage is, to me. Keeping the pace low, running those guys off the 3-point line. Like you said, I think the Warriors were a nice test for that. Like
for sure.
Like
would you say Denver was do you think Denver is a better defensive team than the Warriors, or a worse defensive team than the Warriors?
I think they're better like team defensive. Like if you look at the numbers and all that, I think they're more in sync with what they're doing. I think like the Warriors have Draymond Green, which is kind of his own defensive impact. And obviously like guys like Jordan Poole, those guys are negatives. But I think like the Lakers are a specific matchup for Denver, to where like Devin Booker and KD just didn't have the supporting roles around them, and they're like heavy jump shooters, right? So they don't put pressure on your defense as the Lakers do in terms of paint points, getting to the free throw line and stuff like that. But I think they've maximized the output that Nikola Jokic can be defensively.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think like they've done as much as they can, and he's still like, you're never going to make him a quick foot center. But I think they've at least done what they could have to kind of make that, as even as it could defensively.
Yeah, so that was something that I was thinking about a lot today. So I went through the regular season and there are things that we can take from regular season, probably more for this series than we could from the Warriors series, because it was very different. So when I was rewatching the 2 wins that we had against them, like I tried to find the themes that were successful for us, as opposed to like what player did what, right? Because we have both the wins that we had Russ on the team, and he came off the bench. And like, so I wanted to see why it is that we won with him, with a worse roster, with Pat Bev starting and Dennis Schroeder starting. And we won those games against him. And Jokic played, and Jamal played in those games too as well. MPJ played in those games too as well. Why we beat them versus, and what we could carry over thematically.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that sort of popped out to me before I go into the Lakers offense was that their defense at the rim isn't really that good. Like, I would actually say, more than Jokic, their best rim defender is probably Aaron Gordon. Like, I've seen him block shot of LeBron, he blocked Dennis Schroeder layups, challenge Russ at the rim. Jokic is not like, when I watched the game and where we were taking our shots from, which were in the paint, like Jokic wasn't really doing much defensively to deter it. And so the reason why I asked you that question was because, with the Warriors, even if Draymond's on the floor, Kevon Looney is like, he's freaking huge, dude. Like he challenges everything. And like, I think it might be, I don't want to say night and day, because that's sort of insulting to say, but I think it may actually be night and day for the Lakers rim attacking group. So Dennis, Lonnie, I think is going to be important. Not because he can get to the rim. Dennis is kind of important. Austin will be really important. D'Lo, if we get the good, he doesn't have GP2 on him anymore, so like maybe he can also get to the rim too as well. But like, the rim is there. They don't, like, once you get the first step on whoever it is, or you use that shot fake or whatever it is, nobody's stopping you from getting to the rim. And Jokic certainly isn't going to be a guy who's going to rotate over from the weak side to stop you from getting to the rim. And that was sort of like how the Lakers beat them in the regular season. It was Russ getting to the rim, Dennis getting to the rim, all of these guys doing that. And I think like when I think about whether that we can replicate that in the playoffs, I don't see any reason why not, because we just did that against the Warriors pretty successfully, and the Warriors are pretty damn good defensively just with their individual guys. So I'm. What do you think about that? Do you think that is a way when you think about Denver's defense? Do you think of them as a rim protection, like an elite rim protection team, or do you think, or am
No.
I in the right spot there?
Yeah, so I think they're more of like a rim deterrent team, right? So they kind of want to take you away from the basket before you get there. So
Sure.
they send a lot of help. They don't really like to switch with Jokic, right? Yeah, they want to like keep you out of the paint because once you get in there, like you just talked about, it's Jokic, it's Aaron Gordon, as your like real rim protector. But they do a nice job helping on the backside, and their guards, KCP, Bruce Brown, are really good at chasing over the top, being physical with you. To me, though, this is prime. Like a lot of series aren't the LeBron and AD pick and roll, right? We've talked
Mm-hmm.
about that a lot, and it doesn't get used much because teams are able to kind of just switch it. But this is series to me that they're not going to switch that, right? So like if you run a side AD and LeBron pick and roll, they don't want to switch Jokic onto
Mm-hmm.
LeBron, and that's where AD diving him as a number one as like a rim as a lob threat, and then like just creating all this penetration at the paint, and that's where like you get open D'Lo shots and open Austin shots. But you're right, a lot of those plays too, Vinay. What we did was like we set the screen higher, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it was Thomas Bryant, which strangely was like really dominant against Denver, and
Yeah.
part of the reason why they coughed up 3 second-round picks to get him to not play.
He was
But
he was finishing like I'm rewatching it. I'm like watching Russ and Dennis set him up for layups like at the rim.
yeah,
Jokic is like right there next to him. He's doing nothing to stop Thomas from scoring at the rim. And I was just like, was this a regular season thing, or is he just not want to try and defend? And so like in my mind, I think to myself, like if that's going to end up being AD, I don't think you're stopping AD from scoring at the rim if you're just going to be watching him do it. So I'm very curious to see the if he meets force with force defensively.
exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. And if you look at their first opponents, right? DeAndre Ayton, not sure he was totally engaged, but like just a jump shooter. And then obviously Phoenix was kind of a jump shooting team. Minnesota with Gobert and Towns, who's a jump shooter, and Gobert, who can't really get his offense going. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they defend the paint. But to me, this is like we were setting screens a lot higher, right? So like it's really tough to have a coverage when the screen is like above the 3 point line. So we put
Mhm.
Jokic in space, basically is what you want to do. You want Jokic to have to move his feet left and right. And I thought this is a series to me where LeBron can get downhill. Like that Jokic just can't move his feet with him. There's gonna be games where LeBron looks 38 years old because he is, but I think this is a series where he can get downhill. I think it's a series where Austin can get downhill, and kind of get to that mid range area where Jokic has to kind of be back. They get him to the level of the screen a little bit more nowadays, but yeah, we'll see where they go with that. But I'm fascinated how they put him in these screens, and I think Jokic's foul trouble is huge. He's a guy that doesn't foul very much either. So that kind of battle between the Lakers, who love to draw contact against him, will be interesting. But I think you're right. This is a series where you have to get to the rim and try to get to the basket. Aaron Gordon's a guy that's going to jump at everything. But like that's a place to me where Renee, we have enough shooters now where you can make those guys pay. You have a D'Angelo Russell, you have a Austin Reeves, who should be able to knock down shots from Denver just collapsing at the rim, and they're going to have to keep the defensive integrity up, and you can kind of get baskets that way. But no, I think you're on the right track there. Russ had like a great game against them at home, I
Yeah.
believe. When we were at home, I think Thomas Bryant was like huge against them in 2 games. LeBron always plays well against Denver. Like he has like
Yep.
he has like great games against them since he's been a Laker at least. So no, I think this Denver's really good. I'm keep saying that because they are. But I think this is a good matchup, back and forth.
Yeah, so that actually brings me to the next point, which is the LeBron thing. Like I think part of the reason why LeBron plays so well is because Aaron Gordon starts defending him like his life is on the line, and Aaron Gordon seems to turn up sometimes. Like his physicality, like for some reason, increases against LeBron. Like he takes it very
Yeah,
seriously. And I mean, I get it. You're playing Braun, so you want to like make a name for yourself. So that's probably why that'll happen. So like Braun's game, I think, in this series is going to be very interesting because the last series we saw Braun was doing a really phenomenal job just kind of picking his spots. And then game 6, he kind of had like a Braun game. And he was getting to the rim. He was bully balling his way to the rim in the post and doing it in transition. He was doing a wonderful job that way. So, it was perfect for the closeout situation that we needed it. And again, like Denver is a team where, they'll probably put Aaron Gordon on him, but it probably won't be hard for him to get like Michael Porter Jr. on him. And that's not a guy who could stay in front of LeBron or a guy that Braun can't post up. He can pick on a guy like KCP. He can pick on a guy like Jamal Murray if he wants. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he fits stuff in, like, or not how he fits stuff in, but like how he fits in where he wants to score. Because, Denver altitude is no joke. So they went there a day or two earlier to like kind of get their legs underneath them and adjust. I don't even know if they will adjust, but like his jump shot, we don't know if his jump shot's going to come back. That 3 ball is going to come back the way that we want. But game 6, he didn't take that many threes. He just kept going to the rim over and over again. But doing it in Denver may be different than doing it in LA, and doing it in game 6 versus game 1. So it'll be very interesting to see how he adjusts. Do you think this is one of those? Do you think he's probably going to take the same approach that he did like last time, which is he just kind of waits to see what's working, what's not working, and then fits himself in?
I do. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure he can just go 7 games like full bore, trying to drop 35 a night. And I honestly don't think he has to. Again, I think Denver is a team that their pick and roll defense kind of plays into what our guards want to do. They don't switch, they don't, go up too high, and they don't trap very hard, right? So to me, this is like a series where D'Lo can really get loose, I believe, in that mid-range area. I think you're going to see him try to take Jamal Murray in the post a little bit. I think you're going to see that. I think you're going to see Austin Reeves be able to. We'll see how effective again it'll be, but I think Austin kind of get loose in that mid-range area as well. Try to draw fouls at the rim, try to drive contact. They play a little bit more of a looser kind of ball screen coverage, and I think that'll kind of work in their favor. But I do think it's a series where LeBron's gonna have to score a little bit more than he did. I mean, he scored 30 points at one time. And was super efficient, 10 for 14. I'm just not sure how much he can pull that in the tank like to right away with the altitude in Denver, but I think he'll be serious tomorrow. I think they know game 1 is like has been extremely important in these series to like take a stranglehold early, and I think it'll work. But yeah, I'm interested to see how he approaches it, man. I thought he got really jump shot heavy against the Warriors sometimes, like trying to aim it and find where the jump shot is, and I think we can work it around in this series where he can get to the rim. Aaron Gordon's gonna ball pressure him.
Yes.
Full court. Like he's going to be attached to him, and to me, that's where like I've said the term force with force. So sometimes you can use the force against them. Like that's a like remember last year when the Nuggets played the Warriors, Draymond Green really did that. He like used Aaron Gordon's force against him and kind of got under his skin a little bit, like Draymond does, making him a little frustrated and playing that game within the game. And I'm not saying to do anything that's
below the belt,
sportsmanlike. Or like unsportsmanlike. I'm just saying like Aaron Gordon's a guy that's gonna be fired up in like right away and be aggressive the whole time. And that's where like a pump fake here and there really goes a long way. Like for a guy like that who's gonna be jumping out the gym trying to send your shot to the 12th row. Like that's like to me that's a guy where you want to kind of use his physicality against him. And I think our guards do a good job of that. Like I think Austin Reeves does that, D'Lo does that, LeBron has been like just deferring when a guy like picks him up full court. He's like, I'm just gonna give the ball to the guard. Like you're playing full court on me for no reason. You're wasting your energy doing that. So the little tug of war there, when to be aggressive, when not. And I think the score also will dictate a lot of that with how aggressive he is.
Yeah, I think that's I'm curious to see how that attrition game works out because like Jokic is not Steph, and Steph is probably the best conditioned athlete in the league, and you can see that in the style of play. But I think Jokic may not necessarily be conditioned as well to be able to do that kind of heavy workmanship. Like that's why he gets those 12 to 15 assists a game sometime every now and then, because he just kind of does it his playmaking is very efficient and very smart and cerebral in the way he does it. That actually reminded me of something. Like one of the underrated things that I think may come to light. And it's something that we talked about in the Warriors series when we did the series preview is, when we talked about AD being a dominant guy in the paint, typically we think of stuff like him blocking shots at the rim. But against a jump shooting team like the Warriors, you may not see those opportunities because they don't take shots at the rim at the same frequency, unless they're like, they generate a wide open one off a back cut or something. But one thing that you can see is AD's ball hockey. Like, he is an incredible ball hawk for his size, and he deflects passes, takes away passing angles. And I think an underrated part of the matchup for him versus Jokic will be him getting his hands on Jokic's passes when he tries to throw them. And that is something that I think, if it goes in AD's favor, is going to be something that we're going to see up and down the timeline quite a bit. It's going to be like, oh, wow, AD's deflecting a lot of passes, or AD's, changing the trajectory of a lot of these passes. I think that is something that, like, people don't realize that he does at an extremely elite level, like probably the best in the league. And you really can't see it until he kind of shuts down. Like, it's crazy to say my best defensive player is going to shut down your ability to pass the ball, because you're like, what? Like, pass the ball? Like, that's not really hard to do. But when you think about it in terms of what Jokic does with his playmaking, taking away his ability to pass to his teammates because he doesn't know if this pass is going to make it pass. Like, he's got to throw it with two hands. Now he can't throw it with his weak hand. He has to throw it with his strong hand, where he has to get both of his feet underneath them, or he has to throw a traditional chest pass versus, like one of those no lookers or something that he throws. He's going to get those highlights for sure. But it's just like, can we make him less efficient when he does it? Can we force the trajectory of that pass to go over KCP in the corner every now and then? So now, it changes the kind of offense that they try to run. I think that's an underrated thing. Like an underrated force meets, what's that? Unstoppable force meets the wall sort of thing.
Immovable object. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I honestly think that might be something that we get a good chance to see. Because when I was watching the tape, like, there were definitely moments where stuff like that was happening. Like, Jokic is rolling, but he's not really looking to score. He's doing that thing where he takes like the little Euro step, but he's really looking to pass, and AD deflects a pass or something like that. So, stuff like that's going to be really important to slow them down or junk up some of their offense.
So they like to run a lot of their offense like at the top of the key. So they'll have Jokic with the ball up there, and he'll be kind of, motioning and, running their sets at the top. Are you ball pressuring him up there? Because I think, there's a tug and pull there, you know what I mean, of like impacting his passes or playing up too high. Because this is my concern with the series, Renee, is like, similar one I had the Warriors. I think the Warriors played more non-shooters to where you could do this. Aaron Gordon's really the one guy that they start that you can do this to. The Warriors kind of had a few people we were kind of comfortable, like Andrew Wiggins, GP2, JaMychal Green, Kevon Looney, like Draymond. Like, those are all guys who were like very comfortable with them outside of the paint taking shots, right? And the Nuggets are not that. You can't just give up shots to Jamal Murray or KCP, and even Jokic to an extent. He's a guy that, again, you can't throw the same pitch to. Like, you got to switch your stuff up to. But I think are you concerned about that at all? Not the like Jokic shooting or whatever, but like pulling AD from the paint, because that gets their stuff going. Like the little the cross screens they do with Aaron Gordon, and like people are always wondering, how does Aaron Gordon get so many dunks? It's because like they do those screens and people get lost on those switches like in between the paint. Those are tough to communicate, and that gets him dunks, that gets MPJ dunks off of that. So like, are you concerned? I guess that's my one concern to me of this series is AD getting pulled from the paint, and you have LeBron and Rui or Vando. We can get to like the lineup configurations later, but those guys at the rim having to be the deterrent, the rebounder against, these bigger type of wing guys. That's my one, like, how do we keep AD at the rim if he's defending Nikola Jokic? Like that's to me the conundrum that I'm in, and I think Darvin Ham's gonna have to decide.
Yeah, so that is definitely a thing, because I remember, I forgot what game we lost in the bubble. It was game 4 or game 5. I don't know what it was, but there was a game where AD had like only 4 rebounds, and all of Lakers Twitter was pissed when after that game. They're like, oh, AD is playing terribly. Just look at how many rebounds he has. He has like less than 10 rebounds. And I remember very distinctly in a now deleted tweet where I actually compiled all the rebounds that he could have. Like, I watched all the rebounds the Lakers grabbed, and we didn't have a bad rebounding game. It's just AD didn't have a lot of rebounds because he was busy running out to contest the 3 and in no position to grab the defensive rebound. And even if he did run back in, like, the ball would go in like a different direction where he didn't have the ability to do it. And I remember there was one specific highlight where he ran back, boxed a guy out, and the rebound actually went to LeBron, and LeBron didn't grab it. Aaron Gordon grabbed it and ended up scoring like a dunk or a layup. And I remember like I shared it, and it was like a Rorschach test for Lakers Twitter. They're like, "Oh, wait a second, like maybe this wasn't AD's fault," but that is a concern because of the defensive rebounding. Like if he's going out there to chase Jokic, or like if he's doing it to defend the pass and then he goes to crash the glass, I'm okay with that. But if he's stuck out there because he's worried, like Jokic has already made like 4 threes in a row or something crazy like that, then that becomes an issue. But I will say this, compared to the team that we had in the bubble, I think we have better rebounding personnel with this team. And I think Vando, if he's still in the starting lineup, is a core part of that, because he's going to be on like Jamal Murray or something like that, probably. And we can get into whether he gets that assignment. But like, I think he's going to be on a guy like Jamal, and he's going to go crash the glass. And if it's just going to be a ton of open space, I like Vando's chances of running down defensive rebounds in open space compared to whatever we had, in the bubble, which was basically LeBron was the only guy to do it. And, obviously he can't do it in his current age with his, where he's at physically right now.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get to that. I think a lot of people saying it's not a Vando series, and look, I kind of want to see how it plays out first. I think Rui's going to be important. But I actually agree with that. I think Vando's going to be on Jamal Murray. I don't think they're going to waste time with that. I remember the first Ja Morant possession, they had Vanderbilt on Ja. Like, they didn't waste any time doing that. Like, that was the right away, the defensive assignment. I also think like that's his role on this team, not just in terms of basketball, just in terms of his identity on the roster. It's like you guard the other team's best guard, right? Like, or whatever wing creator. And I think he's going to be on Jamal Murray. I think he could do a fine job with that. So I guess if you have Vando on Jamal Murray, this is where I get worried about the other matchups, right? Because then I guess you have D'Lo on KCP. I guess so. And then you have, you would put LeBron on Aaron Gordon. That Reeves on MPJ, which, I think that MPJ isn't the on-ball creator, but I do think he's a guy that'll shoot right over you if he thinks he has that. And maybe that's part of the game plan, like make MPJ feel like he's the number one option on this team. Like that.
I mean, if it's contested jumpers, then why not?
Yeah, and I think that's what he'll be taking. MPJ, people forget because the bubble we won in 5. That series is a lot more contested than people remember. It was a tighter, tough series. I remember MPJ used to hit some contested threes where like Kuz is right in his face and he still hits those. But I guess, is that the matchups for you that you would start with? I guess so. AD on AD on Jokic, I guess, and LeBron on Aaron Gordon, then Vando on Jamal and the other two guys. Is that where you would start this series?
Yeah. So if they don't start, like if let's say they swap it, then they put Vando on MPJ and they put Austin on Jamal Murray, and they try to do that thing that they did to Steph, which is Jamal, Jamal can score, but we're not going to let Jamal get away with not playing any defense. Like, we're going to put a score on him, because that's also a concern too, right? Like if Vando loses the tug of war defensively or the battle defensively against Jamal, he may not provide us anything on the offensive end to use attrition against Jamal. So like, that's an important part of that game. So if we don't do Vando, I would expect Austin to be the guy who gets the assignment on Jamal. How effective he is, I don't know, but like, Austin is a gamer. Like, Jamal will try and post him up. Austin will try and sell the charges. He'll try and stay in front of him. And again, you have to remember, like, he does have AD behind him, so if it's Jamal taking a DHO from Jokic or somebody else, like, somebody's going to help him. It's not going to be him out on an island by himself. Like, LeBron's going to be helping off of Aaron Gordon and whatnot. So I'll be very interested to see how it goes. I could go either way. Like, I could see the logic behind playing Vando on Jamal just because of the length and the defensive ability. And again, like, the handoff, right? Like, if AD has to pick up Jamal, then you have a bigger body on Jokic, even though, Vando's not going to be able to really box out Jokic, but he can get to the rebound maybe faster than Jokic can get to it. That's a thing that also is part of rebounding. But if that doesn't work, then you can go to Austin and you can test that out too as well. I don't think Ham doesn't strike me as the type of coach to completely change his tactics. From watching honestly, watching the regular season for whatever we can carry from the regular season, we won games with Dennis and Patrick Beverly as our starting backcourt. Like, I want people to think about that for a second. Like, now
Yeah,
we're gonna have D'Lo and Austin. Like, there's a huge difference in the offensive ability and the threat that they can be offensively. That's going to change the entire dynamic. Like, we're discussing defensive assignments on the Nuggets, but the Nuggets have to account for us now too. Like, you're not playing off of
sure.
Patrick Beverly, who averages like 5 points a game. You're not playing off of Dennis, who couldn't shoot. Like, he just go to the rim. That's really all it was for a good portion of the season. So like that, I think that kind of stuff, it'll be interesting to see. But I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those situations happened. And you might be right. They may just put Vando on MPJ and be like, he's just taller. We don't want to risk putting Austin in a position to have to defend a guy 6 inches taller than him.
Yeah, that I think that's what I would do. I just wouldn't want such a glaring matchup hole. I think like
Sure.
that's a really glaring mismatch in terms of Austin on MPJ, and MPJ is a really good rebounder as well when he wants to be. I just think that's a lot of pressure on Austin to guard him. And I think you made the key point. Make them work on the other end. Like you have to make Jamal Murray guard. Like he has to be.
Yeah.
The Suns just did not have the capacity. I mean, Landry Shamet was just not going to be able to, run enough ball screens to where they give a crap about him catching it, or even if he caught it on the move, he wasn't going to attack a closeout or anything
Mhm.
like that, where it put fear into their guards. I think like Austin and D'Lo, especially, they're going to try to hide Jamal Murray on them, and I think that's when you have to go to work, similarly to what they did to Steph, right? Like clear side, let me work. I'm taking you in the post. I'm running you through ball screens. You're going to have to defend and chase, and even LeBron hunting and being very maniacal with the approach of
Yeah.
like, no, this is what we're doing every single possession. I think that's so important this series. We did it in the bubble as well. Didn't have to do it as much, but we did do it. We hunted Jamal Murray, and I think today sneakily we're gonna hunt KCP. Like I remember watching
Yeah.
KCP guard Kawhi, and I was like, oh, like that's a physical matchup that's just not sustainable. I'm not saying LeBron is Kawhi, but I think in terms of a strength
For
advantage, he
sure.
does have the same type of advantage. So I think that those are the two guards where it's like kind of pick your choice there for LeBron, and then run offense through that, simplify it, run offense through that, run it through the post through AD. I don't think they're going to try to double off that. And Jokic, again, a guy who's not going to foul. He knows his like value on the team, and that's
Mhm.
where AD can get baskets. But I think that's a huge part of this series as well. Trying not deliberately destroy your offense, but get Jokic in some type of like where he's guarding AD and he has to guard every possession, right? Like he can't take a break on defense to me. And I think like putting Jokic in actions, a lot of times, like a lot of teams who play Denver, they just don't do it. Like that, you want to put Jokic in space, and sometimes they go away from that. They run like ISOs and stuff. And I think this is a team where very pick and roll heavy. You can attack. That's where Jokic is the weakest. I think he's the best, Renee, as like a post defender. Like I think that's where Jokic
Oh, for
is
sure. Yeah.
the
Big
best,
body.
right? He's
Yeah.
just big body dude. He can be strong. He can have his hands up. He's smart. He can tap the. He gets strips and blocks in that way. But you put him in pick and roll, you make him get in a defensive stance and have to move his feet. That's where I think you have the advantage. And to me, that's where LeBron and Austin could get downhill. D'Lo may be more off the ball in this situation. AD even run some inverted actions, or
Right.
our wide pin down that we run for AD. Make Jokic get through those screens. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we're starting from the corner, make him come around those. And I think that's where we have our advantage. So yeah, be interested to see how we attack them. But I do think we have a lot of avenues to go about it.
Yeah, and another like quiet thing that like I know that we get irritated by when we see it when we see AD and LeBron do it. Like Jokic likes to complain to the refs a lot when he doesn't get a foul call or when he tries to embellish a call, and a lot of times it puts his team in a position where it's like a 5-on-4 because he hasn't run back, and like like this may be a team that the Lakers can not expose it, but they should take advantage of it. AD is faster than Jokic. Like if you can beat Jokic down the floor, you can probably get yourself a decent shot either at the rim or generate an open look for your team because they're going to be scrambling. And it is a strength that they do have. They have Gordon, MPJ, KCP, Jamal Murray. Like two guys are taller, but the other two, it's relatively capable guys to pick up size wise to pick people up coming up the floor. But if AD and LeBron can outrun Jokic down the floor, that's a huge difference for
Yeah,
the Denver defense to account for. Lakers shooters, a guy like D'Lo can get unlocked that way because he's the one who's being left open. Even a guy like Vando getting a rebound and pushing it and letting LeBron and AD run with them and pushing it up the floor. If that turns into a 5-on-4, like that's something that they can try and expose. Like Lakers really didn't have those kinds of opportunities as much against the Warriors because the Warriors are just a very disciplined team, and their guys would get back on time. And Looney put so much pressure on the offensive glass that it was always like a 4-on-4 at the very most for the Lakers. So it's very, very interesting to see how the chess match is going to work out between these two teams. I will say this other thing that, like, with how shorthanded the Suns were, I'm surprised that series went for as long as it went. Like it was a long series, and I don't want to think lowly of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I think they were pretty phenomenal. They put like 80 points up together.
Yeah,
game 3 and 4 or whatever it was, but like you were basically playing 5-on-2 against them, more or less. Like I know a couple role players stepped up, but scoring wise, like they took 2 games from you guys, and they're nowhere near as good defensively, I would say, as the Lakers are. So it's just, I'm very curious. That I think the quality of opponent for Denver with the Lakers is much higher than what we got with Suns. And so in terms of stealing a game 1, like this feels like you could steal a game 1 if they're not prepared for like the level of defensive intensity that they get from this Laker team.
Yeah, I think it's an adjustment both ways. I mean, going from Ayton was out, I think, the last game, but I never thought he engaged fully in that series in terms of what Phoenix needed, right? They needed a Clint Capella, and he was, whatever offensive minded center that he wanted to be in that series. So yeah, just lost my train of thought. But I'm super interested, man. I think they can steal that, and steal that game 1 and go in there and take it. But I think it's an adjustment for both teams. Like the Nuggets they run their stuff through their center. I mean, that's a totally different, like scheme and style that the Warriors just went through, where they, especially after game 2, was basically all through Steph, through their point guard, right? And I think it's an adjustment that we're gonna have to make. But for them, going from like Jock Landale to Anthony Davis, like that's a hell of a jump.
Yeah, I would say it's a huge difference.
Of course, that's a hell of an adjustment. Or going from like, having to where like you can trap. They were trapping every Booker in like Kevin Durant ball screen. You know what I mean? Like, because there's just no one else you worry about. Josh Okogie, Landry Shamet, I think hit 5 threes in one game, but they just did not care enough to where like they respected that. Chris Paul, they were daring. That's a real sentence. They were daring Chris Paul to hit mid-range jump shots, and he could not beat them. And then Chris Paul was out because, of course, it's Chris Paul. And then like they were starting campaign, and like another guy that they're like, have at it. You know what I mean? Like if this is a campaign game, like we're fine with it. And I think he was at the Jokic 50 game where campaign went off. I don't remember if that one was that one or the last one, but I think the Lakers have just a lot more threats that they can throw at. Gonna have to come to play though. It's gonna be another series where I think D'Lo and Austin are gonna have to hit jump shots and have to make Denver pay, because I think they're going to again collapse in the paint and try to overhelp with Jokic, especially him trying to recover back to guys. And I think they're just going to have to send help from all these places. Maybe it's Rui instead of Vando. And then you really have all this shooting out there right next to LeBron and AD. And I do think this is more of a series where Rui can play, right? There's no one really running around like Bruce. We talked about it, that Steph and Clay put the fear of God into you when they come off ball screens. Denver, they have guys who shoot 40% from 3, but it's not the type of like curl, and if they're just a split open, they drill it, and I think this is more of a series, more similar to like Memphis had like Desmond Bane, but I think like Rui can at least survive in the series, and I think he'll be huge, like you talked about, on the rebounds, on the boards, and be able to create his own shot, right? Like Denver's a team again that's gonna pack, and I think like against MPJ or someone, Rui can kind of body those type of dudes and get some shots. So I'm interested, man.
Yeah, so I was gonna say that's a perfect segue, because I was gonna jump right to the bench, the 2 bench units that we have facing each other, playing each other. So like the Nuggets, they do have a decent bench. They do have Bruce Brown. They have the rookie Christian Braun that he's been pretty well. He played pretty well. He's been like sort of the 3-and-D wing guy. He's a very sturdy defender. Like him a lot out of Kansas. And then they played Jeff Green too a little bit, like as like this backup center role that they've had for them. So they downsize. Technically, they are downsizing when they go to their bench at times. But I don't know if that's going to be what they do with us. But that sort of plays into the favor of what we also do because we try to play Rui at center at the 5. We might see that again, or we may see some small Wenyan minutes to keep some size on the floor, so we're not downsizing too much. But guys like Dennis Schroeder will be important. We're going to run into this situation again where we're going to find out, does Ham go back to seeing if Beasley or Troy can get loose and sort of Hunger Gaming their way into figuring out which guy can play, if either guy can play at all, or if he has to go straight to like a 6-man or 7-man rotation and keep it super tight. Like typically, I would say at the beginning of the series, they'll play 10 guys, like not 10 guys, but like 8, 9 guys. And then they'll start cutting down from then on. I don't know if we're going to do that, but I suspect both teams may try to do that to see if they can squeeze some juice out of some of those oranges.
Yeah, I think we've kind of passed the point of where Malik Beasley can just be effective. Like I think we've passed this tier of basketball like intensity where I just don't think like he's effective anymore. Not fully calling him an 82 game player. I don't think that's effective. Troy, maybe. I just think like Lonnie's been so good. Like if you're going to, we already have Lonnie in the rotation,
I
right?
totally forgot Lonnie. So go ahead.
Yeah, no. Like I think Lonnie's gonna get a chance, right? Like I mean, he had a huge, second half of that series against the Warriors. I don't think he's about to just be removed from the rotation again. Like I think he's gonna get a shot to be aggressive. And yeah, Denver's another team, backs off. Not a lot of athleticism other than Aaron Gordon, but a guy that guys that Lonnie can really attack and transition. And yeah, we see in the chat here about Tristan Thompson. I'm fearful that Tristan Thompson is going to get a legit shot in this series. Like the Darvin Ham quote came out today and said he has guys in his back pocket that are ready to be physical, and there's only one guy. I don't think he was talking about Wenyan there.
But my favorite. Let me tell you something. My favorite part of that tweet that came out when they quoted Darvin. My favorite part was people quote tweeting him and going, "Wait, who's he talking about? Who the Lakers have this?" I was like, "Wow, you guys are just gonna act like he's not talking about Tristan because we know it's not Wenyan's not that guy. He's more of a wing slut like Vando sort of built guy, and so people are like, oh, maybe he means he's talking about Vando defending at the 5. I was like, no, we're not playing Vando at the 5. Like that's crazy. Like he's talking about Tristan. Like Tristan's gonna go there and use up all 6 of his fouls. That's gonna be his job when he hits the floor. And so I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but be prepared for it if it does.
People said Bamba's not even in Denver right now, so I mean so you know what I mean. So yeah, I saw a clip today. I don't remember who shared it of like Tristan guarding Jokic when like Tristan was on the Celtics. I think that's like two teams removed already from when he was, and like man, that's not that's not applicable to me. Tristan Thompson, 1 possession on Jokic. So I would when their backup center is Aaron Gordon, so they're not playing DeAndre Jordan. I wish they would. And they're not playing Thomas. they're not playing Thomas Bryant. Again, wish they kind of would. But they're just doing Aaron Gordon backup center. Yeah. I think that we have the forwards. I think to like at least mitigate that, right? Like if you have AD and Jokic matched up, and Darvin Ham doesn't really play the game this way, where he's like, okay, Jokic is out, AD you're out. It doesn't really do that. It doesn't really time his minutes with the other team. Even though sometimes I think would be okay. But like, yeah, he just does not run the lineups that way. So there's gonna be minutes though. I think we're like Rui's on him, and you're just gonna have to survive those. And I just don't think Tristan is playable though. I just can't. I just cannot see a guy who's doing ESPN 2 months ago come in and defend Jokic. They're calling him the Dwight. I just think like Dwight was so good that year. Like people forget Dwight was legit.
He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable for the Lakers.
He was like 6 man of the year stuff. Yeah. Dwight was that year. Like he was legit.
Dwight was so good. Dwight was so good that he actually hurt Anthony Davis's Defensive Player of the Year case that season that he played for us.
Right.
Because this is just an aside. I got into a back and forth with the whole Milwaukee fan base on Twitter about this. Like they were like, well, look at these advanced statistics. This is why Giannis is the Defensive Player of the Year. This is just for the people who don't know what the argument was. I was just like, yeah, you guys beat the shit out of the Detroit Pistons like 4 games out of the year, so that's why his defensive stats look so good. And he's just like, oh, it's AD has to play against like the Rockets or something like that, so his stats are good too. I was like, yeah, but we have Dwight coming off the bench for us, and he's so good defensively that when AD's off the floor, the drop off wasn't as significant as
Right.
it would be when Giannis left the floor. And so people are like, oh, and then it didn't matter in the end because he wasn't going to win the award. But like, that's how good Dwight was, dude. He was like, for the 82 games that we used him, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, and he was physical as hell. And he got like, you're not gonna get under Jokic's skin to
Yeah.
say, but I thought like he bothered him enough. Like he made him feel like he was there. Tristan Thompson, I can't see it, man. That's just years removed, and even 5 minutes a game, sure. You want to throw it out there so he gets torched, fine. Just
Yeah.
get it over though with quick. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll eat the crow on that. I can't see it. I would rather just do the winning. I maybe might get some minutes. I just think like the Rui LeBron is what he's gonna go to. Maybe Rui LeBron Vando played a little bit in Game 6. Maybe like that's where they go. Just be big and sized and forwardy.
Sure.
During that non AD minutes. So we'll see, man. I don't think Denver's. I don't think Denver is changing though, Vinay. I think they're keeping to their 8-man rotation. I don't think they're extending their rotation. Against Phoenix, I don't think they really did. I think they kept it to their main guys. Again, DeAndre Jordan, Thomas Bryant never got a look in that series. Like didn't even get a look. They just went straight to the Aaron Gordon at center. I think they'll do the same thing here. But yeah, tell me about Tristan, man. Tell me if I'm wrong about Tristan Thompson.
No, I don't think you're wrong about him. I think I think if AD gets into foul trouble, we're going to see Tristan. I think that's really going to be. I think that's really going to be what it is because we're basically finding out that Mo Bamba's not going to be playing, like unless we like maybe best case scenario if we make the finals. So I'm not counting on him being available, and I think Ham may try Wenyen like to give him a chance to do it, but I'm not absolutely positive Wenyen will be effective. But it's really like the only way you use Tristan is if there's foul trouble. I don't think the Lakers are going to do anything drastic like play AD and Tristan together. I think it's just going to be, it's just going to be like, it's also Ham just like being Ham, dude. Like, honestly, like that's just Ham's, this is like what makes him a good coach. Like he literally pretends like he's going to use his 15th guy. And I mean, to some degree, he uses like 11th guy, right? Like Lonnie came off the bench and he did his thing. But it's just like, I guess it's his way of like, hey, Tristan, we're not going to play you, but we may play you if something, if AD gets 3,000.
Stay ready.
But I would expect them to like the normal, like sort of logical step process has been AD gets in foul trouble, they downsize and they play hella fast and they'll just start running up and down the floor. They'll gang rebound as a team and they'll try to force you to have to go smaller. If that doesn't work, they'll try Wenyen at the 5 for a little bit. And it might be the other way. Might be AD gets in foul trouble, they play Wenyen, then they downsize before they get to the point where they're playing Tristan. So I think a couple things need to happen before that actually happens. I would genuinely, like you, I would be very shocked if Tristan like off rip was getting minutes. I just don't see that happening right now at this point. But if they need a goon to go out there and collect 6 fouls, like Tristan's going to do it. Like he's good. Wenyen's not the type of guy to go out there and do that.
No.
Like Tristan's going to be the guy who's going to go and like full court press Jokic basically. And you know what I mean? Like he's going to guard him like he's a cornerback or something like that. So it's just funny to see that quote because people are like, what? Like, who are you talking about? Can't be bad though. So I thought that was funny.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah. Would you try Wenyen in this? Like, he's been regulated to like out of the rotation for so long. But I'm just wondering, like, would that be something you go to? Because Lonnie Walker was a surprise. Like, didn't see that really coming. I mean, I could see Wenyen going into. So that's what's so different about like I think the clash in styles to me is that like the Lakers are kind of still figuring themselves out. They're like, oh, what works, what doesn't, like what are we not. Denver's kind of like, this is our team, like we have bits and pieces that we fill in here, Jeff Green, etc. But they kind of know what they are. Like last 5 minutes of game, they know like it's Jamal Murray, Jokic 2-man game. The Lakers are like, well, we could run it through Austin Reeves, we could run it through LeBron, we can kind of diversify where we go to, and that's why I'm so interested where the rotations go, and that's why it'll be fun to kind of see where the tacticians do starting tomorrow. But I've that Warrior series, I thought Renee gave me a lot more confidence in Ham, kind of like with his decisions. You know what I mean? The Memphis series was one thing, but to like go toe to toe, I thought with Steve Kerr and Madge counter with counter, and we discussed a lot of the counters here, and seeing it in the games the next day, it was like, oh shit, like that's freaking cool. Like that
Yeah.
he he did that and made the correct changes. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say like playing in the altitude and stuff like that. At least for game one, like I wouldn't be surprised if Ham does dip into the rotation just
Mm,
to try and keep guys' legs fresh. Like I know we got a couple of days off, but like I mean, it really sometimes too many days off can like uncondition you,
yeah.
as crazy as it sounds sometimes. So like I could see him pulling strings in a certain way to try to keep fresh legs on the floor. For you asked like Wenyan, like why not? Like I saw Thomas Bryant score layups over Jokic. Why can't Wenyan score
Mm,
layups over Jokic? It's not like Thomas was doing anything. He wasn't bully balling Jokic. All he was doing was moving in that open space in the paint, making himself available for drop off passes, and then just finishing. Because there's nobody that's going to block him at the rim. Like Jokic is not a rim protector like that. And I could be wrong. He could just all of a sudden turn into like prime Hakeem in the series, but I just haven't seen it in the tape. Like he hasn't done it in the regular season against us. And I'm watching the Suns series. He's not doing it to them. Like Jock Landale is not getting played off the floor. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like DeAndre Ayton played a terrible series, I would say, for his own standard, but they still took 2 games off of you. So it's like, is it really what we think it is? And so, I don't see why he couldn't. The real question will be, does the defense hold up? When any of
Yeah.
these guys get played. But look, honestly, if Denver is going to keep going with really only Bruce Brown as like the guard that gets switched out, like maybe we will be okay with like getting Lonnie's fresh legs out there because I think having a steady diet of rim attacking on the floor is going to be like super super crucial for this series. And I think you're right. Like Lonnie has to get those minutes because Beasley doesn't attack the rim that way. Troy doesn't attack the rim that way. Um, and we just can't you can't forget how important that is for a team like this. And Lonnie's first step is still great. Like he's got a really
Yeah.
great first step on guys, and so it's important that he keeps playing.
Yeah, and he's really good at knowing how to play off of LeBron. And we were like, he was a really good screener and knowing like, okay, they're gonna trap here. I know where to go get open. And his catch and shoot three was working in round one. He gets to the basket, puts rim pressure. My question, I guess, the next guy is Dennis Schroeder, right? Was really
Mm-hmm.
good in the first series. I'm wondering in this one, like I think Denver's so big in so many places where like I think he'll do a good job on Javon Murray, and he's a gamer too. Just like you said about Austin, I think Dennis is also a gamer and we'll kind of figure it out. But I'm interested to see like where he fits in. He started obviously game 6. I think both of us agree he's not going to start at least game 1. I don't think he's going to
Yeah,
go
I don't think he starts
right
game
back
one.
to.
Yeah,
I don't think he starts game 1, but I'm interested in that second unit as well. He's another guy that like gets to the basket, puts pressure on the rim. He's also a guy that I can see get swatted by Aaron Gordon a few times because I just know Dennis is gonna try those like underhand layups, and Aaron Gordon's gonna send that to the third row. Where do you see, I guess, in Dennis's role, I guess, in this series? Is it just the beyond Jamal Murray when Vando's not, or when Austin's not on him, or where? I think the other guys like MPJ kind of diminish kind of what Dennis does well. So I'm interested to see like what his series is. But what do you think about Dennis? I guess in the series.
yeah. So I think defensively he can definitely replicate the stuff that we were getting out of him.
Yeah.
He could in the Warriors series, chasing guys around screens,
Mm,
being very aggressive, like defensively, ball pressuring for however many feet that he was doing it. If it's not from the inbounds altogether, I you know offensively, his rim attack is very, very important, but
mm,
like he was having trouble finishing at times. Like
yeah.
his three ball's been kind of up and down. But I wonder if it gets better because of the personnel being different. Like now, like he was having to sometimes make play. Like Russ have to make plays for him, and then he'd have to make plays, and Russ would be the guy, or Pat would be the guy he has to make plays for. But now you have a
Sure.
guy like Austin who's got uber confidence, D'Lo who's not afraid to shoot, and other guys that'll shoot the ball if the opportunity comes their way or make a play at least. I wonder if offensively that first step works out in our favor a little bit more, especially against the bench units.
Mm,
Because if it's like a Dennis Wenyan if it's like a Dennis Wenyan pick and roll action and Aaron Gordon's the guy who's defending the rim, like I could see the floater working in his favor. I could see him drawing fouls. I could see him doing kick out passes and stuff like that. It's just like it's going to come down to how we want to attack the rim. Is it going to be for the bench unit? If it's like LeBron and Rui and we're not playing Wenyen, is it going to be LeBron in the post setting people up? Because that's one way of doing it. Or is it going to be getting downhill over and over again? Because that's what we did in the regular season. Because Russ and Reeves were coming off the bench for us at that time. They were both getting downhill. So you want to replicate what was working. And frankly, if they're using Aaron Gordon as their backup 5, I want him to collect fouls so that he can't even play with that starting unit in the late game because he's in foul trouble. You know what I mean? Like, don't take the pressure off of them defensively just because it's a different unit that's out there. So I'll be curious to see. I feel like he should have a good offensive game, like against this team. I just don't know if how it'll come. Will it be at the rim? Is it the mid range with the jump shot and whatnot? It'll be curious to see.
Yeah, I think him hitting jump shots is huge in this series. I think that it just changes how teams have to defend you, and that's why like the Dennis Vando units are really tough because they're two guys the teams don't really guard. But again, in that game 6, him hitting a 3 early, I thought was huge.
Huge,
and like that 3-guard lineup that we were discussing, D'Lo, Dennis, and Austin with LeBron and AD, all those guys can score off the dribble. Like they're all pick and roll guards that like can run their own action and run it in different ways, right? They're all different. They're all diverse in the way they run actions. And I think that's a really tough way to guard. I worry about a little bit defensively, but yeah, I think Dennis can get to the floater game again. Like the defense that the Nuggets are going to play, they're going to try to be back, try to take away AD at the rim. And I kind of want to bend him into this too. Where does AD get his points in this series, right? So AD got a lob, I think, in like a few. He gets so few lobs, and people think it feels like AD should get a lot of lobs. He really doesn't. He got one from LeBron and like one from Dennis that I remember from the last series. Not too many. Like he got a few like tip in lobs. I'm talking about like full on. He catches and dunks it with like 2 hands. Those type of lobs aren't really happening at a very at a high rate. Where's AD getting his points though in this series? Is it one-on-one against Jokic? Is it isolation scoring? I don't think they want to send 2 against him right away. I think they're going to try to see if Jokic can just be big and like try to deter him. But AD's in such a rhythm right now that like when he's going, he's in a full rhythm where he's like his jump shot's going, his step back is kind of is starting to hit, the little jump hooks are starting to hit. So where do you think like he's getting his scoring? Is it pick and roll? Is it post ups or like kind of a variation, I guess, of those kind of things?
Yeah, I think it's just rim running. Like I could definitely see him like just again because Jokic is not the rim defender. Like he's not fleet footed.
Yeah.
He's not the type of guy. Like I could very easily see him catching pocket passes from his teammates and just sidestepping Jokic and taking layups at the rim. Or getting those floaters uncontested, basically, because Jokic isn't going to jump. Like Jokic get like 6 inches off the ground, really, when he jumps. But he's a big dude, obviously. So it's just like his mobility, his agility, which is what Draymond tried to take away when they moved him to center into the starting position. That should be to his advantage against Jokic. So I don't think he has to score off of offensive putbacks and like like he can certainly do it off the wide pin downs and stuff like that, like you were describing. But like he should be able to do it off of basic pick and roll action. I mean, that's how Thomas was scoring in the regular season.
Yeah.
Like it was either a guard getting a shot at the rim or it was one of our bigs getting a dump off pass. And they should just run that nonstop until Jokic starts having to commit, because that's the game of attrition we have to play also. Jokic has to defend. Like we can't allow him to sit and drop or semi-drop, whatever it's going to be, and just be okay with it. And I think the other aspect is like Anthony Davis is also firmly aware that this is like the defending MVP for the past 2 seasons. So I think like he gets up for these kind of matchups. So like I want to give him the ball in space because he's going to be afforded that space. I don't think, like you said earlier, like I don't think they're going to come out right and double team him from the jump. I think they'll play him straight up with Jokic and take their chances. Even the play that he made in the bubble, that 3 that he hit in the bubble to win that game, or the 2 or whatever that he hit, like Jokic was nowhere near him. Like they didn't respect him as a scorer or a jump shooter, even though he was having a great jump shooting playoffs. They didn't respect him for that shot, and he made the shot obviously, and he's immortalized in Laker lore because of it. But what makes you think that they would do it differently? Like what in the tape against the Warriors makes people think that they would just like double team out? Like did the Warriors double team AD outright? At any point? No. And so why would the Nuggets do it? So I think you just keep feeding him, just keep running that pick and
Yeah.
roll, and let him find his way.
Yeah, that's where it's interesting. I remember so when the Lakers used to play like Utah, right? AD would go nuts against Gobert. Like he would
Yeah,
just absolutely lose his mind. Because I think that's a matchup. He's like, "Are you serious right now? That dude just won
yeah,
Defensive Player of the Year over me like
yeah.
every time." And yeah, look, I think this is the battle of the best big man. No disrespect to Joel Embiid, who was just I think went out sad, as the kids say these days. But like, yeah, I thought like Embiid
Forget
was.
no. Okay, you can say that, but I'll say all disrespect to Joel Embiid because, dude, like it's just. I mean, we don't have to talk about the Sixers, but it's like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Oh
you're going
God.
up and like it's not acceptable to be. He's way too good. Joel Embiid is way too talented to be that inconsistent as a player on the offensive end. All right, like I
Yeah.
get it if you're not gonna play defense, but you can't not after the politicking that we did all season for that MVP, dude. It's just
Yeah. Al
like a
Horford just one on one let him just
yeah,
like
he's it's like his
punked
freaking
him
kryptonite. Yeah, I don't know
in
how to describe him.
multiple games, blocked his shots and all that. But no, with AD, I think it's interesting. I think that matchup is so huge. Both of them can't be in foul trouble, right? Jokic and AD are the pillars of their teams right now in terms of like what they run on.
Absolutely.
And both of them can't be in foul trouble. That is like the series right there. If one of the that's a game right there. Whoever's in foul trouble. So I'm interested. AD's aggression. I think Draymond, I'm not saying like he stopped AD, but he definitely deterred like shots from man. I think
Sure.
Draymond does a nice job of getting under you in a way that like makes you uncomfortable,
Yeah.
like that we don't see, right? We're like, yeah, you're bigger than him, which I think is still a valid, reasoning, but there's stuff that Draymond does that makes it tough. Kevon Looney's really big, right? And the Warriors kind of shade over. I'm interested how the Nuggets kind of play this. The AD's been really good at going quick, at attacking at the basket. I think he's in a different mode offensively than he's been in a while.
Mhm.
So we'll see if that stays. But yeah, that matchup there, whether the Lakers I think the Lakers are going to try to do the same thing on the other end as well. If Jokic is on AD, try to let it single coverage and see if you can stop him. And we'll see if the Nuggets do the same. AD, obviously the better defensive player. Jokic, I think, has the edge on offense. He does have the edge on offense. So, yeah, I'm so fascinated by this series. But you're right. This is I don't think you could sugarcoat like this is battle for best big man. Like I
Yeah,
know Jokic
absolutely.
has the
I
has
agree.
the back-to-back MVPs, but that is out of the window during a one-on-one competition. Like this is battle of like who has the best big man title, and I think AD can definitely put his name in the hat with a win.
Yeah, so on the YouTube chat, Shell
Mm,
has a question here. Like, do we see AD having to carry an
mm,
offensive and defensive load? And so I don't think he has to carry the offensive load. And I
yeah,
think the defensive load that he has to carry is very different from the defensive load that he had to carry against the Warriors. I think his
sure.
defensive load has to be it's Jokic. Like it's very centralized. This is the guy that you have to guard. Whereas against the Warriors, they have this freaking system that we need you to cut. These 2-3 things that they like to do.
Mhm.
We need you to do it. And um, I think the fact that it's a little more focused on one player defensively for him will allow his offensive load to be easier. He will have some energy. He'll have some legs to be successful because it's just the way that the Warrior system is versus how Denver likes to play. It's not one is easier than the other. They're just difficult in their own sense because Jokic is a MVP caliber, passer,
Yeah,
player, offensive guy. But in terms of like mental capacity, like I need to accommodate for three different things on one defensive possession versus I just need to stop Jokic or get the ball out of his hands and then go box out. That's much easier compared to the Warriors.
Yeah, it feels more traditional, right? It
Yeah,
feels like more of a not that again. I think Denver's better than the Warriors. That's not what that means. I just mean like the Warriors
yeah,
are so unorthodox. They're so different. They're so unique. They're a unicorn in the way they play. It just again the fear of God when Steph or Clay come off these screens. It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure on your big to come out, go back, hedge, recover. Like all that stuff is really tough. And I'm not saying Denver's gonna be easy. They're a freaking really good home team. I think we played three teams this playoffs, Vinay. That's the best three home records, I believe.
yeah,
Maybe other than Milwaukee, but I'm pretty sure the three teams we're playing had the best home records in the league. And this is gonna be another tough place to play. But I do think this feels more traditional. This feels more like a LeBron can dissect you by games like guy game 4. That type of stuff where he really can hone in. And I think we'll see we'll see how it goes. Denver's legit. They've built a nice, nice roster. They built like the perfect complement. I think the Jokic that you could. So this will be a bloodbath, but I'm fascinated, and I think we have a really good shot, man, which is insane to say after what we've been through. But we have a shot to go to the finals, man. We have a shot to go to the freaking NBA finals.
Yeah, it's 4 wins and we're in the finals. And this is not a real storyline, not a serious storyline, but there is a little bit of revenge series here for Jared Vanderbilt because he was originally drafted by Denver, didn't get very many minutes for the first 2 seasons that he was there. Very limited. He didn't start any games, very limited, and ended up getting traded to Minnesota where he just kind of exploded as a player. And I don't know if that's a chip that he has on his shoulder. He seems like kind of a cool guy. So maybe it doesn't bother him at all. But maybe there's something there. Like I'm watching Bruce Brown play against the Phoenix Suns and he's playing like his life is, like I said, like his life is on the line. He's talking trash to KD because they were teammates back with the Nets. And, he loved the Nets. And, TJ Warren's on the other side too. He was also with the Nets at one point. So it's like you see, you never know for a role player, they carry those kind of feelings and stuff like that when it comes to it. Jared may not, who knows? But like, it'll be very interesting. I think, and I think somebody just said Waiver Acer said this is the Thomas Bryant revenge series.
Yeah,
he's not getting minutes. So
Malik Beasley revenged on Denver. No, I don't think Malik Beasley should be happy with Denver. They gave him a really nice deal.
Yeah,
that he's still on, so.
We have a couple of Malik's another guy that we had that used to play with Denver. He actually got minutes and whatnot. KCP revenge series. I don't think it works if you win a championship with us. Like we did. Like it's not like we threw you to the wayside. You know what I mean? Like, and so I don't think KCP has ill feelings. I will hope that they put KCP's quote on the bulletin board before the game.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
They would have beat us. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Without 80s 3, I was just like, all right. We got a little bit too far to get this. He was in the middle of a contract. If I remember correctly, he was in the middle of a contract extension negotiation. And then he said that quote. And then I'm messing around. I'm probably making it up, but I could swear that he signed his contract extension weeks later with Denver afterwards. And I was just like, this guy, dude, Rich Paul's got his clients trained, man. They know exactly what to say to get what they need to get. So, it's funny that nobody's you would think that the dramatic, the same way there's dramatics against the Warriors series, you'd think there'd be dramatics with this series, but there's actually none. Everybody's just Lakers Warriors. Or sorry, Lakers Nuggets. They're gonna play each other Tuesday. We'll see you then. I'm like, all right. I guess this is a big deal to me.
No evil storylines like Jokic and AD. Just pure respect on the other end.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray used to really be a thorn. You remember that? With the Lonzo Ball days, Jamal Murray used to be a real hated thorn. He'd come to LA and get booed relentlessly. That's kind of died down, and I expect Jamal Murray to do some. He's a very he's a very expressive basketball player. So when he's playing well, he'll make sure to let you know it, and I'm sure there will be some back and forth there. But yeah, it feels like some really respectful series. Here's what I will say, Vinay. I think LeBron can smell it. You know what I mean? You can smell the finals.
You think Game 6 is him? All right.
I mean, this was my worry in round 1. I'm like, man, it's so far. How much can LeBron give? But we're so close, and his last conference finals that he lost was 2010 to the Orlando Magic, right? With Mo Williams as the second best player, which is crazy, the expectations on that team. But when you think back on it, or was it someone else? Was it Antoine Jameson? I don't remember.
That was a series where they exchanged game winners, right? Hedo Turkoglu hit a game winner, and then LeBron hit a game winner. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that was the last time he lost in a conference finals. But I just I know this is narrative driven. This isn't basketball, but I think it is kind of basketball. I think LeBron can smell it, man. You can feel it. You're this close. You're 8 wins away. He just has to put his body through 8 more wins. I'm sure that's the way he thinks about it. And I need 8 wins. You know what I mean? How do I maneuver my body to get 8 more wins? And that's super close, man. That's absurd. That's not 8 wins to get to the play-in, which was a real situation that we were in.
At one point.
We were you gotta go 8-1 to make the play-in game. And now it's you have 2 teams left, and The number
Yeah.
one seed Milwaukee Bucks are gone, right? Like that's by the wayside. You're playing the one seed in the West now, the Denver Nuggets, and then you have a Boston and Miami team on the other end, who two teams have kind of been up and like not trying to look ahead here. It's just like just LeBron's mentality to me must be like I'm like right there. Like
Yeah.
if I can dip into my tank one more time and just pull out whatever's left,
Yeah.
I think we should be good.
Yeah, and the trend has been the Lakers winning game one. You know,
Yeah.
Memphis, they win against Memphis, they win against the Warriors. So if the trend stays consistent, you know, they might be super serious and try to steal game one before, you know, Denver can make any adjustments. And if you're a superstitious person, like you'll think back to the bubble, like we were dropping every game one, we would lose every game one
Yeah.
of every series on the way to the finals. And so, you know, if the trend, if you believe in all that stuff, I'm superstitious to some degree. Like I think, like you know, I think they have a decent shot at taking game one, just because the opposing team may not know how they're going to approach it. So if the Lakers can go out and really put a stamp on their game plan and be locked in defensively, they could seal a game one. And then as soon as that happens, you've already taken like you've
Yeah.
already hit them with the first haymaker. So now they're playing catch up because they've lost home court. So I don't know. You know, there's a question in the chat. You know, do we need to win 2 on the road to win this series? I don't know. Like they may be able to get away with just taking one road game and then taking care of their home games because we've been phenomenal at home. Our role players have played really well at home. And I think Denver's role players are kind of up and down on the road too as well. So it'll be very interesting to see just kind of how things shake out and whether it's the same guys that step up, if it's like Austin and Dennis and Lonnie, or if it's somebody completely new that steps up because
Yeah.
they're
It,
locked in. So it'll be interesting to see.
And so, like, to me, in a playoff road game, I have a few like you have to take the crowd out of it early,
Oh,
in my opinion.
absolutely.
Like, that's what makes the Sixers Celtics so sad. Like, they were a perfect start. They were up like double digits early, had a great start, and then just fumbled it all because Embiid and Harden forgot they were in the playoffs. But like to me, like we went back and watched game one of our Warriors series, and I forgot like the Warriors went up like 12-3 or something. Like they
Yeah.
banged in like 3 threes right away, and then like the composure to come back. But we've been like Memphis game one, Warriors game one. We were up like double digits early on in
Yeah.
those games, and I think that's important. Jump on them early, get the belief, get that belief down, and I think the pressure's on them. Like game one. Like that, in my opinion, the home team has the
Yeah.
pressure in that first game. That's why, you saw it even in the Philly Celtics series, James Harden goes in there without Embiid and wins game one. And like to me, like game ones is where like that's a lot of pressure on the home team to keep that home court that you fought so valiantly for all regular season. So there's a chance, man. You go in there aggressive. I think AD and LeBron are going to take that one very serious. 4 days off is the most rest they're going to get
Yeah.
until this series ends, where it's now it's every other day. But yeah, you got to take advantage of the rest advantage that you have until that comes in, and start well. Start with a game one win, and then that can lead you on the script that we've been following. So
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out. You know, there's tons of other stuff that we didn't cover, but we're going to cover game to game, like
yeah,
how we fare in the non-Jokic minutes, how we fare in the non-AD minutes, and what needs to happen. But once we get game one out there, we'll have a good idea of what both teams like to do and where we can adjust and start predicting stuff out. So before we go, we'll do our series predictions. I'm going to go with Lakers in 6 again.
yeah,
I don't know where the road win is going to come from. It could come in game
mm,
one, like it has a previous series, or it could come. I could definitely also see it coming in a game 5 situation if they kind of, I could see a situation where both home teams win. Their first, they just go 2-2, and then that
mm.
game 5 ends up being like the big pivotal game. That ends up being the case. But the Lakers have been taking game ones, so who knows? Maybe they're just trying to pounce early so we can figure it out. And no, Shell, there is no corgi to my understanding when it comes to. I would like to not have to post corgis getting kicked out
Anchorman.
from Anchorman memes of dogs getting kicked. I'm about to find another one if that corgi
Oh
shows up
man.
again. But what are your thoughts? What do you think about this series?
For that, did you see like I think Cooper tweeted like there were people within the Lakers organization that were aware of the corgi and was like man, this thing has gotten out of control. That corgi was even wrong on some. Like it picked the Knicks to beat the Heat. Like just picked specific, matchups, and like Warrior fans were really basing their stuff off that. They're like, yeah, look, Corgi said 3-1, and then they're gonna come back. So no, thank God that's over. No, I had the same. I picked Lakers in 7 in the last round. I picked Lakers in 6 in this round. I do think they'll get one of these first 2 games. I also think it's necessary to win the series. To me, 2-0, trying to come back. So that's a huge deficit to work
Yeah.
out of. To me, that's a lot to like have to put your legs through, to where you're in like do or die every game, because you can't let the team get the third win, right? That's kind of the bar
Yeah.
for a series. So I think it has to at least be 1-1 going back to LA, and then Lakers have not lost a home game this playoffs. There's been a few close calls, but this crowd has just been absurd at crypto, and hopefully that continues. And yeah, I think they have a really good shot, man. I even Phoenix, like they had some close calls in Denver. There were a few games that were like close over there, so give me some hope. And yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Yeah, so it'll be Phoenix was, I think Booker had to go a little crazy for them to keep one of those road games close for Phoenix
Hmm.
before they let go of the rope. And I think Lakers are just way more balanced of a team in terms of all aroundness, where they can rely on their role players. And one of their role players can explode, Rui or Austin or D'Lo. Somebody can get super hot and win you a game. So it'll be interesting to see. You have Lakers in 6. I have Lakers in 6. So Raj, we have a game tomorrow. It's an early
Yes,
game for the folks that are listening. It's 5:30. It's not a 7 p.m. game. So I'm sure the East Coasters are very happy that they can go to sleep at a normal hour, because it is hell to watch Laker games on the East Coast
sure.
on Eastern Standard Time. But as always, we want to thank the folks that are in the spaces and on the live stream
Yes,
submitting questions, sharing, liking, retweeting, subscribing, whatever you do. If you listen to this on the podcast, leave a rating. That also helps out. I don't know how it does, but they tell us it does. So it's always nice if you can leave a rating there too as well. And we appreciate you guys giving us, an hour and a half of your evening to just kind of, talk about Lakers basketball and do this preview. So we'll figure out what our schedule is for the next one after game 1. Hopefully Lakers are able to steal one.
yeah,
If not, we'll just discuss adjustments and we'll get it on the
yep.
calendar and share it with the rest of the timeline. So you can follow Raj, you can follow me, you can follow the Lakers detailed account. And if nothing else, we'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.
Peace.